Welcome to Corbin's Coasters and More. I'm Corbin, and today I'm taking you through another haunted attraction. If you didn't see it, I posted a video ranking the HHN houses, Halloween Horror Nights at Universal Orlando. Give that a watch as well. But today it's all about Busch Gardens Howl-o-Scream, which I think is the better of the two events. I know it's controversial. It is a smaller event, as in they only have 5 haunted houses, but I don't care. They are so fantastic. I can't even really rate these, but I am going to give each one a rating. Like with HHN, I only get to do this once a year, so I didn't take any of my own personal video. They don't allow video inside the houses anyway, so the video is just going to kind of be like commercials and previews, just to have a video and some pictures that move. Other than that, just listen, and I'm going to give you some good tips on how to enjoy the night at Howl-o-Scream, what I liked, what I didn't like, and why it's better than HHN. First thing I'm going to start with is the price. You can get tickets for as cheap as $35, $40 for this, versus HHN is about $80 to $100. Now, I did go on the Platinum Pass Holder free weekend, which was nice. So I didn't have to pay to get in because I timed it right. Now, I don't know if it's going to be as dead as it was when I went. I went on a Sunday and there were no lines all night. Every coaster and house had a 20-minute or less wait all night long. And I did ask some people, and they said Saturday was much, much, much busier. So Sunday might be a good day to go. Now, as I mentioned, they do have 5 haunted houses. 2 of them are new, and 3 of them are pretty much exactly as they were last year. The one that got completely scrapped from last year was actually my favorite, which was the prison-themed one. That one was really awesome. But this year, this one gets replaced with Stranglewood Estate. And this was a haunted house-themed haunted house. So I really liked the meta of that. I liked the entire theme. It was as if the ride Haunted Mansion from Disney came to life and was actually scary. There were statues that moved. There was a room of ghosts where you knew some of them were real, but you didn't know which ones were real. There were really awesome mirror effects. And all the actors were in really good makeup, costumes, wigs. And that is the number one thing they do better than HHN. Halloween Horror Nights is mostly just actors in cloaks and a mask. Busch Gardens puts their time in makeup. And I actually worked at SeaWorld, which is the same company, a couple days during Howl-o-Scream last year, and even the bartenders had an hour worth of makeup and costuming done. So they really, really do put a lot of emphasis into the theming. Stranglewood Estate was a solid, long house to walk through, very long. Probably close to 10 minutes to walk through. I got to walk through it twice. Once with a group, once literally by ourselves. We got to walk through just us. We got every single scare, and man, it is literally the scariest haunted house I've ever been through, and also probably the best. 10 out of 10 for sure. Like I said, I went through it twice. So next up, Deathwater Bayou, Blood Moon, the final phase. This one is werewolves in a bayou. It's kind of voodoo themed. As it says, it's the final phase, so they changed it a little bit from last year, but not much. I think they took out some of the scare actors. There really weren't that many. And the scare actors mostly just looked at you. Not many of them jumped. It was more of the eerie feeling rather than a jump feeling, which I usually like, but there wasn't that much to look at. I think I am ready for this to be the final phase, and let's get something new next year. Very short, too. I mean, it takes like 3 minutes to walk through. The coolest thing, though, was when we got outside. When we went in, it was completely dry, and like I mentioned, it's a 3 or 4 minute walkthrough. We came out, it was pouring down rain. Literally thought it was part of the house, like an effect. So that got me more than anything. And on this one as well, I did get to go through it a second time just because it was there and there was no wait. And we went through by ourselves to get every scare, and it still wasn't scary. So I'm going to give it a 3 out of 10. This one wasn't nearly as good as the rest. Next up is The Residents Home for the Holidays. This one is back in Pantopia. Probably the only really good thing in Pantopia since the drop tower still isn't open. Hashtag Open Falcons Fury. But back to Halloween. The Residents Home for the Holiday. This one was cool. I have never seen such an interesting theme for a haunted house, and I've always wanted to see this. I've literally mentioned how much I want to see a Christmas-themed haunted house, and they did it. So this house, The Residents, did exist last year. It's basically a murderous family, and last year it was not Christmas-themed, though. It was really creepy, you know, mom and dad would turn around with bloods on their hand. They had just killed the kids, whatever. This one had all of that, plus scary Santa Claus. And there was actually a Santa Claus at the end who told you little funny things. Like Santa told me he's seen my browser history and frowned at me, and I thought that was absolutely hilarious. This one's definitely not about the jump scares. It's about just making something so happy and fun into something creepy and scary. Although one of the best jump scares in the entire park did come from this house. Not going to tell you where, but it did come from this house. 10 out of 10 for sure. One of my favorite haunted houses I've ever seen. Then there's a returning house, The Forgotten. This is literally a vampire sex dungeon. So, as I mentioned with HHN, yeah, not kid-friendly. This is less kid-friendly than Halloween Horror Nights. A, you have a creepy Santa Claus. B, you have a vampire sex dungeon. Don't really need to say more than that, I don't think. But there were more kids at this event than Halloween Horror Nights. Again, it depends on what you want your kids to see. But, yeah, I know it's nothing I ever saw as a kid. There is a St. Andrew's cross. There are handcuffs and shackles and a bed sling. So just know that going in. And that is one thing that makes this house so cool. Again, this one is not super jump scare heavy as much as it is just sexual and tense and really actually feels like what a vampire's red room would look like. I really, really enjoyed this house. And this one had the best practical mirror effect I've ever seen. Basically, you thought it was coming from one direction, it was coming from another, but it was all done practically. That's what I love about how Busch Gardens does Howl-o-Scream. Practical effects everywhere. They have spots where someone jumps at one group from the left, and so you're looking left, and then all of a sudden someone jumps out from the right. It's quite impressive. And the number one thing I like most about Busch Gardens versus HHN, Howl-o-Scream, they put you through in groups of about 15 to 20. And if it's slow, if the lines are short, they put you in smaller groups, sometimes just you, or you and up to 5 people, depending on the line, which really gets you a lot more of the effects of the house. Where in Halloween Horror Nights, every single house, regardless of how busy it is, you're going through in a straight conga line. So you actually have to be quite lucky to get any of the effects for yourself without seeing them in front of you. Also, the lighting at these houses is so much darker at Howl-o-Scream. There are spots where you almost don't know which way to turn. And there's a really cool thing. It's not in The Forgotten, but it's in a couple of the houses where you don't know where you're going, and the scare actor actually points you to the right or to the left, and it's 2 different experiences. Oh, and while I'm at it, I did forget to mention, in Deathwater Bayou, they do have one of those really cool tunnels that spins while you're going over it, and you feel really drunk, especially if you're already drunk. So that is one of the coolest practical effects as well. But back to The Forgotten. Went off on a tangent, but The Forgotten is a really awesome house. I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10. It's the only thing that's not perfect is it's not quite long enough, and they could do a couple jump scares. Like there's a guy on top of the bed that I wish he kind of jumped down, but really this one is about, like I said, the tenseness and the intensity, and it's really fun. Then their last house, Witch of the Woods, is the longest haunted house I've ever seen. This one I was really looking forward to going back to. It is about a 10 to 15 minute walkthrough. Part of it is in the woods outside, part of it is inside, and this one has some of the widest pathways. You're literally walking through what feel like individual, like 1910s homes, like one-room homes. You go through a butcher shop, you go through a covenant, and you have people talking to you, sometimes just being creepy while someone else is jumping at you. There's people on stilts, people on swings, and just so much cool stuff going on. I really, really, really enjoy this house for its scariness. It's the darkest of the houses. It's got the most scares of any house. And the theme is pretty cool, and there's some gruesome stuff in there. Another 10 out of 10. That's right, 3 10 out of 10s. So even though they only have 5, 3 of them are 10s and one of them's a 9. So that's why I think this is better than Halloween Horror Nights. If you saw that, you saw my rankings were all over the place. Some were really good, some were not. The other thing that Howl-o-Scream does better is the scare zones, which they have so many of. I think 10. I'm going to go through them rather quickly as they show up in order on their website. And I'm going to put an aside here. I've been saying so much good. There is one really bad thing about Howl-o-Scream, and that is the food and beverage. I pre-gamed. I did not get a single drink at Howl-o-Scream because they didn't have anything that wasn't pre-mixed with sour mix in it, or just a can of regular beer. They didn't have any themed beers or themed ciders. It was just very basic, your Bud Light and that kind of stuff. They had a couple drafts and the same 2 sour mix cocktails everywhere throughout the park. And I'm very disappointed because Busch Gardens usually does festivals really well with food and beverage, and they really, really missed on that. I spent probably $60 or $70 on food and drink at HHN. I spent 0 at Howl-o-Scream. So it's not because I didn't want to spend the money. It's because it sucked. But as I said, scare zones were great. They had a couple new ones. Raven's Mill. This one was really cool. It was scarecrows, and it was after the hill on the aviary. It was a really long scare zone. Some of them had chainsaws. Some of them had axes and other garden tools. There were some cool looking ones with pumpkins on their head. There were others that were just normal looking scarecrows. Really creepy, really good jump scares, and I enjoyed that. There was Beyond the Veil, which I don't really remember that one, so couldn't have been that good. The Junkyard. Now this one is kind of in between a haunted house and a scare zone. You actually have to enter and exit this area. You're not just walking through. This one was there last year as well. Really awesome. You're going through a junkyard, and the theme is that the pets have taken over and you are now their pets. So there's like a dog with half his jaw hanging off holding a leash ready to put you on his leash. They hold, lawn tools like lawn blowers and stuff. There's a swing involved. There's one guy that skids on his shoes and creates sparks. Freaking cool. And that one, because it's a scare zone and not a house, there's never a wait per se. So you can walk through it as many times as you want, and it's right at the front of the park. In the Shadows is one I don't remember, so I'm going to skip that one. Skeleton Crew, the pirates, back in Jungala. I really liked them. I thought they really got into their characters more than maybe anyone else in the whole park. Not as scary, but just really fun. The Shortcut, I remember this one from last year and this year. You're cutting through the cemetery, and, there's nuns and gravekeepers. The theme is really eerie. The jump scares are good, and I thought it was fantastic. Voodoo continues the Bayou theme. They moved this one to the back of the park this year. This one had some really creepy masks and, shakers, so I thought that was cool as well. And, I'm just realizing that Beyond the Veil, the one I thought I'd forgotten, it looks very different on the picture, but this was actually the coolest scare zone. First of all, as you're coming into it, you see smoke bubbles. So they're like regular bubbles that you would blow, but they're made of smoke instead of soap. And I was absolutely enthralled by this, as was pretty much everybody. And it's fairies and orcs and they're creepy and telling you, oh, look at the bubbles, stuff like that. It's really, really neat. It's kind of raveware, glow in the dark, creepy fairy tale stuff. I think they should turn this into an entire house. It would be really fun. So I think they do scare zones extremely well. I know this video is kind of long, but they do have shows as well, and I got to mention them. So they did return Cirque Scream from last year. It was not there on the day I went. I think they were starting the next week. If it's the same as it was last year, really, really awesome variety show, akin to a part of a Vegas Cirque show. And I really, really recommend it. Just as good as the show at HHN. Then they have the Rolling Bones, which I did not see. That's just a band that plays at the Dragonfire Grill. They have Fiends, which is their big stage show. I found this to be hilarious. Dr. Frankenstein is the host with Igor, his sidekick. It is a lot of topical Hollywood jokes, sexual jokes, really not kid-friendly, really funny. I thought the acts were kind of as far as like the dance acts and singing acts and stuff. But the actual comedy, it was one of the funniest slapstick comedies I have ever seen in my entire life. And it is like a lot of, dad jokes and old school 80s feeling jokes. And that's what I liked about it. It was funny. And the other show was their new 50-50 Choose Your Fate game show, which is a staged game show. Very let's make a deal themed, what's behind door number 1, door number 2, door number 3. The main actor for this, I don't know if he's the same actor every night, but he was incredible. He could play the Joker on a Batman movie. I thought he really, really played that evil dead clown perfectly. And it was a whole lot of fun. So I recommend seeing, for sure, 50-50 Fiends and Cirque Scream. 50-50's short and quick. Fiends comes on a couple times a night, and Cirque Scream is a longer show that happens, I think, 3 times a night on a normal night. And that one also, sometimes you can see a daytime show if you get there early. As with HHN, this is a separately ticketed event, but they don't have the holdover like Universal does, so you do actually have to leave the park and come back. I think this year they were giving out wristbands when you were coming in, so maybe you could just go to the entrance and get a wristband, but the houses don't open till 7, so it kind of seems like you can get that in-between period. We rode Iron Gwazi and Cheetah Hunt during that period, so they have the rides open, but not the haunted houses until 7. And they're open till midnight or 1 a.m. every night. And we were done pretty early and got to redo some stuff, but we still didn't leave until right at midnight. It was a whole lot of fun. And like I said, pregame, because the drinks there are really not good unless you like basic beer for $12. But everything else, perfectly done. It's my favorite Halloween event I've been to. And I haven't been to that many, I'll admit. But definitely it beats HHN and it's half the price. So comment if you have been, and let me know what your favorite house was, what you liked and disliked about the event, and make sure to watch that Universal video as well. Thanks for watching this way too long video on Corbin's Coasters and More.